Welcome to the Steelers Depot live stream here on this Tuesday. Almost said Monday, but it is a Tuesday, December 26th. Appreciate you guys being here. I am Alex Kozora. As always, joining me is Bryan here on Tuesday. Of course, decided to not do so on Christmas for our own sake and schedules, and probably yours as well, but still wanted to try to keep on a relative schedule throughout the week and talk about this great win over the Bengals on Saturday, 34-11. Pittsburgh 8-7 on the season, back in the playoff race. Dave, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, happy holidays to everybody. Thank you for everybody for joining us again. And man, we get to talk or follow up a win, and a big win at that. Haven't been able to do that in quite some time.
A much better mood here today than the last couple of live streams. A reminder, Dave and I are here until 8 p.m. Eastern Time for an hour, answering as many Steelers questions as possible. We'll try to get to every single one. If you want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered by Dave and myself, you can send us a super chat and become the next person in line. No obligation to do so, but we appreciate them all the same. You guys see top of the screen as of right now, Mason Rudolph, the presumed starter, although Kenny Pickett potentially could still be in the mix. He'll practice this week. Basically, Mike Tomlin saying on Tuesday they'll run the same schedule as last week. Rudolph getting starter reps, Pickett being monitored, and going from there. So we'll start things off. And before I do that, just if you guys could like this video and bring in more of Steelers Nation, we would appreciate that. We'll start here with Ronald Hall with a comment, which we'll read to start things off. It says, "Happy holidays, team. Great Steelers win and the best Christmas gift this season." Could not agree more, Ronald. Thank you for stopping by. Joey Jr. says, "Alex and Dave, Mason Rudolph was the best quarterback all weekend. Wow, what a hell of a game from Mason Rudolph. I hope he can take the job." Looks like I know Tomlin has the caveat of, Pickett's health, but that's going to be covered, to give him permission to start Rudolph without having this, Pickett's been benched or a healthy Pickett is losing out to Rudolph. Is that your read of the situation? Basically, is there any way in which Rudolph is not starting this weekend?
It doesn't feel like it with everything that Tomlin said and didn't say, and the line of questioning and the factors involved with. You can still point to the Kenny Pickett health overall and the way he was handled in practice last week, and obviously ultimately ruled out on the injury report. To me, it would take something kind of seismic, it feels like, at this point. But to Tomlin's credit, look, that thing probably went as good for him, Mike Tomlin, and about as probably close to as one would probably predict it would have went. With the way he handled that press conference today overall, because once again, and we talked about this on the podcast first, don't envy the decision that he has to make, but you can bet that it would, however the rest of this week plays out, it'll be split and divided and talked about and overanalyzed from every single angle, and the politics involved of, if Kenny ends this week as anything but out on the injury report, you do kind of open up the line of questioning of, does this mean the Steelers have given up on Kenny? There is that road, and some people will go down that road anyway, as far as analyzing this. But as long as he has the crutch of Kenny Pickett not being 100% to use, it always kind of gives them a backdoor to get out, if that makes sense there. So, yeah, I think based on everything he said and didn't say today, it certainly does feel like Mason Rudolph's going to be the quarterback against the Seahawks at the very least.
The good news is this has not become much of a story. People just go, okay, Pickett's still working his way back. Rudolph's going to get the start. He looked good. Yeah, we can all buy that, accept that. And that's, as you said, the ideal outcome from the optics of it all for Mike Tomlin. Listen, if Kenny Pickett's not going to start this game, he's not going to dress for this game. I can't see a scenario in which Kenny Pickett is the, dressed backup quarterback in this game. It'll be Trubisky as the backup, Pickett inactive, or maybe emergency third quarterback, something like that. But it's either going to be Pickett starting or him not dressing, and it's very likely to be the latter.
Here's the thing, too, that he effectively did, if you think about it, the way he handled that press conference today. The Seahawks, to some degree, have to possibly prepare for all three quarterbacks to some degree.
True. Yeah, at least Pickett versus Rudolph in terms of the starter.
Right. And for all they know, Kenny Pickett could still be the backup. So, and Mitch could be the backup. So, obviously they're probably going to pick one and focus on that. But in reality, they're probably going to have to look at some Trubisky tape and some Pickett tape throughout the week.
And even if the health cover is not good enough, Tomlin can say, well, he was healthy, but the reps weren't there. He wasn't getting the team reps early in the week, and we wanted to make sure he was fully ready to be prepared, and that's why he didn't play. So even if you put the health thing aside from a rep standpoint, you could still have that out. Now, if Rudolph plays well again, and they win again, then week 18, what happens then? Different story, but for now, I think Tomlin has 1 week of coverage to stick with Rudolph. All right, let's get to some questions here. Raged EA2 says, evening, Dave and Alex, do you have a plan for the Steelers' next Super Bowl? Special live streams, articles, etc. I imagine it would be the craziest 2 weeks of Steelers Depot history. I'm sure it would. I wish that time felt closer than it probably does. I'm sure, Raged EA, that we would have some special things. The site, when the site was in its infancy for the Packers Super Bowl in 2010, you remember what that time was like for the site? I know it's a much different site then compared to now, but what was that time like?
Oh, no, it wasn't. Yeah, there was no live streams or podcast didn't even, I don't think, start until right around 2010, right in there. So, we're talking, you're asking me to remember something 13 years ago.
Hey, it's either you won't remember it at all or you'll have the most vivid memory possible. So it was a coin flip question.
I really don't have much memory other than just probably writing posts about it. We didn't have near the staff and people. You weren't even writing for the site then, not. Were you? I just don't remember. But obviously it wasn't over the top. Now, what would we do the next one? We'd obviously cover it from every angle, and we've had kind of minor discussions that, for some odd known reason, if they were to make it this year, I suppose we could probably very easily get somebody like Joe Clark credentialed for it and fly him out here or something. So it would be a good problem to have.
It would, and if you're looking at your screen right now, we can read the recap article that Dave Bryan wrote on February 6, 2011. Steelers lose to Packers 31-25 in Super Bowl XLV recap. It starts with the phrase, where to start.
You set me up here.
Whenever we ask these questions, we have to go find the answers to them. So we can read about...
Look, I don't write good now. I can only imagine how bad this one's written.
Anthony Madison apparently picked on in that game, and you called that going into it. So there you go, a little trip down memory lane. I think our next version of the Steelers Super Bowl recap and coverage will be a little more expansive than that. All right, let's go to the next question here. Matt Bell says, hi, Alex and Dave. Hope you had a good Christmas. Going into the 2024 season, are you happy with Landon Roberts, Quan Alexander, and Cole Holcomb as our starting inside linebackers? Health is kind of the big question right now. Alexander with the Achilles, the second torn one of his career, 30 years old. It's hard to really trust what he may offer. His play was really good before getting hurt. Holcomb will be back, and I imagine fully healthy at some point in the spring, somewhere around there. I'm okay, though, with Holcomb and Roberts being the starters next year. There still might be a look towards the future and more of a stud type of guy potentially, but Roberts has played exceptionally well. Unfortunately, he's hurt now too, but I'm okay with a healthy Holcomb and Roberts as my starting duo next season.
Here's the thing, Roberts is under contract, right?
Through 2024, yeah, through next year.
So that Quan is not under contract, though.
Right, and with the Achilles, it's don't know what you're going to get on the other side of the injury.
Right. Plus, it's probably going to take a little while for him to overcome that. You would think that if they brought him back coming off of a second Achilles, it'd be another cheap 1-year deal and probably not much, if any, guaranteed money within that. I still think that it's time that it's time for this team to address the position in the draft, I think.
Right. But with so many other needs that may have higher importance, you may kind of get lost for a season.
Yeah.
But it depends on who's there and free agency and all those variables that we can't predict right now. Raged EA again says another random question. Alex, can you expand a bit on your lateral-based offense theory? I don't think I've ever heard it laid out and why it would work. It's a half a joke, but it's half serious. It's just, an offense that is built to some degree around plays with laterals. Practice them the way that you practice running normal routes. We see laterals, hook and ladder, and some of the stuff that Kelsey does. Obviously, the whole, lateral to Tony that got called back. Defense is trying to plan for it, expect it. If you just have a couple plays that are tried and true, you're not going to fumble as much as you think. And if you practice with the guys that you really trust, I think it could work. I think it could be a really cool wrinkle, the way that the Wildcat was a cool wrinkle that had teams fooled for about a season.
I don't know. First thing that pops in my head is the ball being on the ground.
I know.
More than you want it to.
These could be short tosses. I'm not saying you're throwing across the field like the end of a play, but just right next to a guy, 2 routes that are very close, and you lateral it quickly, something like that. I think there's a market there. Somebody should try it.
I'd get nervous enough now when you see some of this jet motion in front of the quarterback and he tosses it instead of hands it off, which is theoretically a pass at that point. I get nervous enough seeing some of these wide receivers bobble those.
I'm just saying, it's someone's going to use it. The Chiefs will use it for a playoff game again, and it'll be great. And someone's going to pick it up and try to run with it. All right, Jonathan Mason, what fuels the cult of Kenny Pickett? Is it because he was picked in the first round or because he went to Pitt? I don't know if there's a cult of Kenny Pickett. I think he was under a lot of criticism throughout the season. And I think most people are pretty happy that Rudolph is going to be the starter. So I'm not even seeing that. I mean, I'm sure there are some out there, as there will be for anything. And to answer that question the best that I can, I think, because, he's the first round guy. You have kind of your franchise claimed into him, and you hope this guy can work out. And then the hate of Matt Canada became the defense of Kenny Pickett. And so that's kind of been the guy that you had been turning to before he was fired to say why Pickett was struggling. It's not Pickett's fault. It's the scheme's fault. It's Canada's fault.
I think you can rubber stamp this across all fan bases with specific, first, second round quarterbacks and all. Now there is the element of the University of Pittsburgh product tied into that, which is obviously a little bit different than you see around the league here. But here's the thing too: you've got a lot of people that put their flag in the ground, if you will, the moment he was drafted, right? So those people are going to that's the hill they're going to die on, within that. So I don't think it's probably as a whole, if you look across fan bases, I don't think the reaction is any different overall here. You got people that firmly believe in him, that have had their flag in the hill since day one, and then you have others that weren't Pickett fans right from the start, thought it was a bad pick, and now they want to rise up and try to have their moment. And then you have the others that maybe started off on Pickett that have kind of bailed at this point. And you're seeing more and more by the week of, oh boy, the Steelers need to draft another quarterback now, by the week. And then, like you said, you have another faction of the fan base that say, well, let's, it's all on Matt Canada. It's all on the offensive scheme at this point. So that's why I think you see the areas of division that you see right now.
No, I agree. Good answer there. Mike Adesso says, Merry Christmas, everyone. Between our center and long snapper, I counted at least 9 below-average snaps last game. This is a continuous problem. How has this not yet been addressed? It's not a good sign. And goes on to say the holding and the snaps are the issues, that Cole, Kuntz, and Presley Harvin all need to go today. Dave, Mike Tomlin asked about Cole snapping, working on the side. Gave the answer, basically, we expect that from him, routine stuff. Are you still concerned with some of these issues?
I mean, when the next one happens, yes, obviously, and in between, anytime you have a quarter, that can quarterback that can disrupt the play when you have something low like that. Can throw the ball. And we've seen that more than our fair share of times this year, where it's ruined plays.
Mm-hmm.
That way. So, I mean, you rep it in practice as much as you can, and you go from there. It would make for an interesting study. It would be a time-consuming study to go to pick out, say the Ravens center Linderbaum and the Chiefs center, and watch every game of theirs and try to compare, how many were extremely volatile snaps, until you really have some, because they all do it,
Right.
How to measure the percentage of, the volatility, I guess. Now, one is too many, but where does it go from there? So look, here's the thing. I got a feeling this is the last year you're going to see Mason Cole as a starter at center.
Seems going that way. He's been a bit better since the first month of the season, although I say that it's really a run blocker. The pass protection's been iffy and the snapping has been regressing. But I think you talk about a position that you want to find that guy for. Talk about Pittsburgh Steelers. You talk about legacy centers. They're going to need somebody like that as they continue to kind of turn over this offensive line and try to round things out. Yeah, it's a good point. You're right. Every center's going to have some missed snaps, and when you're watching. If you're a Steelers fan watching the Bills and there's a slightly low snap, you don't even really doesn't even register because you're not invested in the game. It's different whenever Mason Cole does it, but this is more than what it should be. I think it's safe and fair to say that there has been an issue with his snaps consistently being low. So, bottom line though is, like it or not, they're not benching Mason Cole with 2 weeks left with no real replacement for him, no natural center replacement. They're not cutting Presley Harvin at this point in the season. You're riding with these guys till the end.
Yep, I agree.
Appreciate you guys being here. 84 in the chat. If you guys could like this video, maybe get to 100, would really appreciate that. Go through our questions. AB says, the best thing that can happen going forward the next 5 years, Mason plays okayish in a tight win against Seattle, and then Pickett starts and plays like trash against Baltimore's backups in an eliminating loss, yes or no? I mean, to say 5 years based off of 2 games is, I wish I had that kind of foresight. I don't think Pickett, I think Pickett playing poorly is not the best thing. The best thing is Kenny Pickett plays great coming back, and you ride that going forward. I think his point is basically saying, if Pickett plays really poorly, may compel this team to move on from him if you're convinced that Pickett's not the guy, and I'm not convinced Pickett's the guy, to be clear. But, I mean, answer that question. I don't think about what's the best thing for 5 years. I'm just trying to think about the game on Sunday.
That's all. I'm wondering which. That's where I'm at right now. Okay, he did it. Mason did it once. Go out there and do it again. That's where I'm at this thing, and I keep going back to in my head about Mike Tomlin talking about football justice and Kenny Pickett and all. Even if let's say the Steelers lost to the Seahawks on Sunday, and then for all practical purposes, if they're not officially eliminated, they are on life support at that point. That obviously gives you a good enough reason to go back to Kenny Pickett against Baltimore for a regular season finale. But then at that point, what Baltimore team are you facing at that point? Are they going to be playing their starters, and how will that game be looked at because of what's on the other side of football? So are you really going to even get a good measurement out of that game for Kenny Pickett unless the Baltimore Ravens play all their starters there? So at this point, and look, I think we're going to find out early in the offseason when we get into pro days and all like that, how serious or not serious this team might be as far as chasing a quarterback in the draft. My gut right now, and this is based only on how Mike Tomlin has talked about Kenny Pickett since day one and on into where we're at right now, I think organizationally they are willing to at least give this another year shot with him.
I agree. Just to sidebar off of that in the comments for a moment, I'm seeing a lot of people on my timeline at least suggest that even if the Ravens have the 1 seed locked up by week 18, they're still going to play their starters to try to, play spoiler in a sense against Pittsburgh. I can't see that happening. I mean, they would of course love to eliminate the Steelers, but they would love to have Lamar Jackson healthy more than they would love to eliminate Pittsburgh. So I think if they had that thing locked up, I mean, the only other thought would be if they don't want their guys to be rusty, and there's that kind of debate, do you rest guys, you get the bye week, all that, but I think they're going to rest their top guys.
I would think so as well, too. And who was it? Queen? I know their safety, Kyle Hamilton, went down. It'd be interesting to see if he's healthy enough to play against the Dolphins. But do you even want to mess with that, right? Especially if you got into a meaningless game with a guy that's had sort of some of the recent issues that Kyle Hamilton has had there. So that's one player you could. If I'm horrible, no way he's playing in a meaningless game. No way do I put Lamar Jackson out there. Stanley has been they've been trying to limp him to the finish line at tackle throughout the year. Wasn't it Roquan Smith that was kind of tugging at his collarbone or his shoulder last night? It was either him or Roquan Smith. One of them looked like they got kind of a little dinged up yesterday. No way do I play anybody of value that I can get away from if I'm playing a Steelers team in a meaningless game in week 18. The Steelers can have the win for all I care. I want that number seed bye week and come out of that bye week as healthy as I can possibly be.
For a team that's lost Lamar Jackson each of the last 2 seasons and this led to collapses, how would you ever rationalize? Could you imagine playing Lamar in a meaningless Week 18? He gets hurt and you lose because of that in the playoffs. I mean, that's almost fireable on its face. So I just cannot see that happening.
Well, it's going, whether it's preseason or meaningless game finale, it's going to be over-examined based on the results.
Sure, of course, but I think even just going into that game, I just don't think you can justify playing your guys, and especially
I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
All right, Jose says, maybe, I'm not sure on the pronunciation, apologize, but says, how long is a Landon out? This week, we know that. Beyond that, not quite sure, but would not be surprised if he does not return this regular season.
Here's the thing, at least on the surface, what came out of Mike Tomlin's mouth, it seemed to be a lot more positive than what I thought it was going to be coming out of that game, because he used the word snake bitten, right? So look, I'll tell you what, we'll have a gauge by Saturday at 4:00, right? Because if he's going to IR, then that's when he would go to IR.
That's true.
If they think he can, if they think that this is a 1 or 2 week injury, then he won't go to IR by 4:00 on Saturday.
Right. I mean, I guess, yeah, you're right overall. I mean, if you were on IR, could you come back in playoffs if you missed just a couple postseason games theoretically? Is that how that works for the playoffs?
I don't remember how. I think once you go on IR, you got to miss four games,
right. But you could still come back in the playoff games.
Like if they went to the Super Bowl or something. Yeah.
You can do that and get activated. And not that I'm saying that's going to happen. I'm just trying to map this thing out. I don't know if he'll go on IR, but I still don't know if you're going to see him the next 2 weeks. I mean, he just may miss the next 2 weeks, and they don't need the spot. They may just kind of hold on to him.
Well, here's the thing. If they don't beat Seattle, you're probably not going to see him against Baltimore.
Yeah, that's also true because your season's over and just let him get healthy and rest in the off season. Happy holidays, says David O. Happy holidays to you as well. And thank you for always hanging out here and producing some great articles, great perspective articles, and helping out with the Friday 5 on the site. Mark Miller says, what percentage would you give the Steelers of making the playoffs and winning a game? I'm saying 35% of making it and 20% of winning a game. I really don't know on percentages. Winning a game may be lower than that. Depends on the matchup. Obviously, health of the team, how they look the final 2 weeks. Presumably good if they get in the playoffs, but I don't know overall. They're not high, obviously.
Well, look, you look at all the models, the New York Times and NFL.com and the FPI, they're all somewhere in between 13 and 18% or something like that. It feels, and this is recency bias, it feels like it's higher than that.
I agree.
Look, the Jaguars are going through it with Trevor Lawrence right now. Who are the Texans? Who are the Colts? The good thing is the Raiders have still got a reason to play for something this week against the Colts. The Texans and the Colts obviously in the season against each other. So, obviously none of this matters unless the Steelers win out here. But I like their chances, at least in Seattle. I don't think that anybody can come out right now and unequivocally say, I guarantee you the Steelers are not going to win in Seattle against the Seahawks. I mean, there'll be people that think, I don't think they're going to win. Okay, that's fine. But I mean, would you bet your house on it? Would be my question. So within all that, based on who they need to lose and the situations with all those teams from health standpoints and how they've been playing, it feels like it's higher. I would say off the top of my head, 28% chance.
28. There you go. Yeah, I think maybe a third. I think you're right. The path to get to the playoffs is not that crazy, especially if Baltimore has the 1 seed locked up, and not that you're guaranteed to win that game, but your odds, of course, increase if you beat Seattle. So maybe a third to go to the playoffs and then win a game. We'll see who the opponent is, maybe 10, 15%, something like that.
Now, as far as winning a playoff game, it depends on who and what, when, where,
Yeah. Lou says, happy holidays, guys. I have a question for the both of you where your answers may differ. Do you believe quarterback's record is more important than the stats? Thank you. That's one of those old debates, quarterback wins. Is that a team stat, a quarterback stat, all that kind of stuff? Where do you come in on stats versus results in terms of wins and losses?
I come in on what does the tape say.
Yeah. You took the third door there, and I agree.
Yeah, I took the back door there. Because look, and people, most of you listening in the chat room there, I love advanced analytics. Absolutely love it, but they can lie to you at times as well too. The tape don't lie, So I don't give a crap about the wins. Now look, I will state this: it is good to, and one of the redeeming qualities that Kenny Pickett has at this point in his young career, some of those fourth quarter comebacks and wins. Okay, but that. You're not going to get that every week in the NFL from any quarterback every single week. So no, wins is usually a byproduct over time of good tape.
Right, and good stats in most cases. Pittsburgh's kind of been a bit of an exception recently, but the overall, I think, yeah. But your tape with the adjusted net yards per passing attempt, because you love that as a really good historical indicator.
Love it, and it's hard to go against it, isn't it?
Right, exactly. I mean that you can look at that number, and even before you watch the tape, we'll have an idea of what kind of quarterback that is.
Yep.
All right, and I'm basically in the same camp. I think if you're talking playoff wins, then that has more weight to it, obviously. But in terms of pure wins and losses, I think the stats will matter more, and the tape matters most. All right, Stephen Carpenter says this year's draft is loaded at quarterback. I hope they go after one early, but I feel like they won't. You're probably right about that, Stephen. 104 people here in the chat. We did break triple digits, so thank you guys. Really appreciate that. Please like, please subscribe, and check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Michael O'Malley III says the Mason Miracle of Christmas was a dagger in the Steelers for years to come. Now Tomlin will get extended football purgatory as long as he is here. So Michael upset about Mason playing well and the team winning. I think regardless, win or loss, Mike Tomlin was gonna return in 2024. I really don't think he was gonna get fired.
Yeah, I feel that way as well too, and we're not gonna tell that fella how to feel.
Yeah, some people are on my timeline again. I'm seeing comments. They want this team to lose. They want the better draft pick. They assume no Super Bowl run is possible, and that's likely true. Me personally, I'm happy when they win. Life is better when Pittsburgh wins. I know this team's not going to go hoist a Lombardi, but I'm just happy to get victories. All right, let's see. Next question comes from Mike Adesso. If the Steelers were to bring back Pat P next year and play him at safety, would he be best as strong safety or maybe in KZ role as third safety and at free safety? Also, they would have to rework the contract, right? I don't think they would have to rework the contract. I mean, considering where they are cap-wise and without any big pending free agents, I think he could be on that contract.
Here's the thing, and it goes back to the first part of the question. If he's going to play safety in the NFL, it's going to be more in a center field role.
Yeah, he's not a strong safety.
Right. He's not a strong safety. Well, you got somebody else there that has that role when he's healthy there. Are you going to pay him to be a backup and not play special teams, that kind of money? No, I don't think you are.
Right. He could come back as a starting corner and kind of have a role similar to what he had prior to all the safeties getting hurt.
You could.
He's played pretty well since the first month of the season.
He's played better as of late. Yes, he has. That's going to be an interesting decision when it comes. He's another one. Doesn't he have a roster bonus due?
I believe so. Yes, I'm feeling pretty confident he will return. I didn't have that answer the first 4 weeks of the year, but I think Tomlin loves him, loves the veteran presence. He's shown his versatility. I have an article in the morning coming out on Patrick Peterson, the many hats that he's worn, especially in recent weeks. The numbers are more positive, so I think he's going to return, especially with Levi Wallace being a free agent, probably not going to come back. I don't have much of a doubt that Peterson will be in uniform for the 2024 at least training camp.
He's got a March 17th roster bonus of $3 million, and his base salary is $3.8 million. So it's $6.85 million is what he's scheduled to earn. That's not killer from a pay standpoint. You know, obviously his cap number's higher because you got the other year prorated roster bonus in there, but all that would do is turn dead. Money if you cut him. So here's the way to look at him right now as we sit here today. Has he played well enough to earn $6.85 million in 2024? And within that, can he at least start the season and maybe give you a half a season as a starter and help tutelage to Joey Porter Jr. into his second year, and who knows, maybe another young corner on top of that. That's earning some of that $6.85 million instead of hidden yardage, hidden leadership.
Yeah, no, I think because they need to draft a corner, and so have Peterson take him under his wing for a year, and then Peterson has become a pretty versatile guy, and so if you dump him, you got to find somebody that can do that, and that'd be 3 straight years from Sutton to Peterson to the next guy, and that those guys don't grow on trees necessarily, so.
And you could still sub-package him as after he, if you had somebody kind of overtake him on the other side there. So, right. So once again, I think, and this is whoever suggested that question, Mike, kudos to you, because I think if you take your fan hat off and put on kind of your general manager hat, and if you look at this in a vacuum, the way we just did there, and look at it as $6.85 million is what you would pay him. And if you deem he's played well enough in these last couple of months and can at least give you that at the start of the season, and then you get the benefit of him being able to continue to tutor Porter and whoever else comes onto the roster, and you hope to maybe get Corey Trice back running around here in 2024. I think if you boil it all down that way, you can make a good argument of to keep him past. And look, you're going to have to make a decision on by the middle of March there, because once you pay him that $3 million roster bonus, odds are you're going to keep him.
Right. And before he moved to safety, he had not been playing a ton of outside corner. He'd been playing a lot of the slot work and really more of an every down role, nickel packages. And with Porter now shadowing the top receiver, Peterson's not responsible for covering Jamar Chase half the time. That's now a Porter job. So he's you're able to hide. That's probably one reason why his numbers are a bit better than they were to start the season. So all that being said, where I sit today, I'd be pretty shocked if he did not return.
Now, look, first 6 games into the season, might have got a different answer.
Sure.
But I think, and showing that versatility, because look, you could have some fun with him in some sub-package situations moving on into next year with a healthy Minka and putting him in, maybe you have another corner emerge on the other side over there, whoever that may be. You could have some fun with some rotations there.
Oh yeah, I mean that was their intent, and they didn't really get to do that early in the season. That's partly why I think he struggled, but the role has been a bit necessitated by the injuries. But I think he's looked good, and I think he's a really sharp guy and a leader, a veteran presence in that locker room. He helps you out in a lot of ways. All right, Bathief says, do you have an analysis of how much better Mason was than Kenny against the Bengals? Seems like the big difference was a drop by Deontay and a huge yak play by Pickens. Yeah, I mean, Pickett played well in that Bengals game. They didn't finish enough drives, and that was partly, stuff out of Pickett's control. Deontay not finishing that, the, debatable ruling by the official, the fumble the next play, those types of things. But, I mean, it's worth remembering that Pickett played one of his best games, if not his best game ever, against the Bengals in Week 12. And then, yeah, I mean, you just didn't hit the deep ball, as you're referencing there, and then the Pickens yak play, those types. The Steelers finished the drives in Week 16. They did not finish in Week 12. That's the difference.
You know what they did? Scored points.
The old Matt Canada line. Scored points. They did.
Scored more points.
They certainly did. All right, what else do we have here? Another about 20 minutes with you guys. JJ Walker says, if the Steelers go with Mason going forward, is that sending a clear message about how they feel about Kenny? What do they do next year at quarterback if this is the case? Yeah, that's kind of the big question. That's why I thought, it's going to be hard to... That's why Tomlin's utilizing kind of the cover of the injury, because if Pickett is healthy and we know that he's healthy, he's kind of been declared healthy and he's not starting, that leads to a lot of offseason questions.
And there's already going to be that anyway, if this thing goes down. Even using the Pickett injury as sort of a lean-to here, there's still going to be a little bit of that overall question about what they think about Kenny Pickett. Now, look, if Mason Rudolph goes out there and has another game similar to, or if not better, than against the Seahawks than he did against the Bengals, there's no damn way he doesn't start the finale. He's your starter until otherwise there, and then really the questions are going to start at that point moving forward there. I still think, and I said this on the podcast the other day, look, number one, I don't envy being in this situation, because you are going to get different angles and narratives picked at either way in this, and it's a no-win-win situation unless you win, really. And even then, there's still going to be people that are going to question, what does this mean about Kenny Pickett moving forward here? But I think when you boil this all down, you owe it to the team, the organization, and everything to what's best for this next game right now.
And again, you can get away publicly with the framing of Pickett either isn't healthy enough to play or he doesn't have enough reps to be comfortable playing as a young second-year guy. So you can use that for a week. You can't use it for week 18, I don't think. Then you have to decide who's your best quarterback and kind of declare that. This week you can sell it enough that people will buy it.
Yeah, and if you lose, then it's a lot easier to go back once again to Pickett in the finale.
Right. And if they win and Rudolph plays well, as you said, then you can't avoid this story.
Right. Had the Steelers, little inside joke with everybody, we pay attention to the media side of things, and when they release the one of the monumental things that we always track during the week is usually ahead of every Mike Tomlin press conference, you get the weekly game release from the PR department, and I'm sure you've all seen that. It's very informative. It's like 80 pages. A lot of it's duplicate stuff with only the new stats added to it and all, but within that every week is the updated depth chart. Now, as a whole, do those depth charts matter on a week-to-week basis? I mean, they change when it's obvious that the things have changed on the field. usually.
Mhm.
But the curious thing about this, I just pulled it up right now. They have not released they have not released the Week 17 game release yet, and I wonder if that's because they don't want to have the depth chart out there. Not
But
that
they're
we would
not
think.
They're not going to change Pickett's
Okay.
status, I don't think.
Okay, yeah, but even if they don't, right? I mean, I'm not expecting them to either. But that would create conversation and people jumping on both sides of the fence.
Probably.
All right, give me a good reason why they have not released this.
I don't know. The holiday hangover.
Okay, all right.
I mean, do you expect
if this thing goes up at midnight
at the 2:31 a.m. depth chart release, but you expect Kenny Pickett to be listed as a starting quarterback on this depth chart whenever it is released, correct?
Yes, and if asked about that in the next press conference, he could just pawn it off. I didn't. I got a lot of things on my plate. I didn't get around to updating it.
Well, the good thing his next presser won't be until after the game, so it'd be less of a question. Or more of a question, potentially, I guess, depending on how Mason Rudolph does.
That's the silly stuff that we look at.
Yeah, that's just the nerdiness that is Steelers Depot, and that's why you guys are here, and we guys love you for it. All right, what else do we have here from the question and from the comment side of things? Less of a question, but we'll read the comment anyway. Anthony says, trade up and draft Michael Penix Jr. Kenny Pickett's decision-making and reading his progressions based off of coverage are not good enough to stay consistent. So we'll have plenty of time this offseason to discuss all the quarterback talk that I'm sure will come up. It may not matter much, but it'll certainly be discussed.
There's going to be a lot of it moving forward. A lot of people talking about it.
Russ Obenstein, our friend, says, do you guys think the Ravens are winning the Super Bowl? Who do you think is a Super Bowl favorite right now, Dave?
Oh, boy, before last night, I would have probably told you San Francisco, but to see what happened in that game against the Ravens there. Look, I've said it, and I've got it out there on Twitter since about the middle part of the season. Is there one team that's absolutely dominant in the AFC right now? If there was one right now, it would probably be the Ravens, right? Oh, yeah.
How could it not after that performance?
And on the NFC side of things, I think it's potentially the 49ers and maybe the Cowboys, but even the Cowboys have shown that they're vulnerable, and 49ers showed they're vulnerable. Look, the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs this year in the AFC, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Miami has their moments, but then they come out and have games like they've had a couple of times this season here. If I were to, at least where it comes to the AFC, it's hard to bet against Baltimore just based off what's happened recently.
It's hard to find a weakness in that team. I'm trying to rack my brain. Coaching, offense, defense, special teams. I mean, they are as solid and as well-rounded as anybody. I think San Francisco probably right about up there, but Baltimore obviously proved they appear to be the better team last night.
Man, Lamar Jackson's so damn dangerous, man. Extending the plays, that's tough, and look, they don't have Mark Andrews, and the receivers are at times a bit questionable, but and look at the running back situation now too. They're still getting it done.
Mitchell, right? I mean, I think the weakness is will the weight of the injuries eventually catch up to them, but obviously it has not so far. All right, what else do we have here as we get through next 15 or so minutes here of the live stream? Let's see. Joey Jr. says, Alex and Dave, could you imagine if Mason Rudolph got us to the playoffs and won a game with a bunch of prayer emojis? Good problems to have overall. I'll take that, Joey Jr.
Yeah, that's that would be, once again, you're already going to be in that realm about talking about the quarterback, and that's not going to go away. If you get in a situation where not only do you get into the playoffs, but you win a playoff game with Mason Rudolph, that's another layer of the onion that's going to be talked about there. And you can bet you damn sweet that Mason would want a little bit more money.
For a lot more money.
To come back and all like that, or at least, he's going to be willing to shop himself like he did last offseason. Look, every game is a big game right now for Mason Rudolph. I mean, that one against Cincinnati could have ended pretty much ended his career if it didn't go well. You know,
right.
And now he's got, you know, what looks like at least another chance. I mean, what if it goes south again on him? You know, God forbid, on Sunday against the Seahawks, it's going to be that was just a one game.
Right.
It was the Bengals. You know, it was Alex's post. Why can't they play the Bengals every week? You know, so he's still got a lot to he's got every game. Obviously is not only important for the Steelers at this point, but it's critically important for Mason Rudolph and his future, because he might be, might have to make sure the locks and all still work on that treehouse.
Someone might take that treehouse if things don't go too well. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's confident in himself, and I say this a little tongue in cheek, but it almost would have been better for him if he didn't start this game. It just had that one great game against the Bengals. True. And just put that tape out there to free agency. But obviously, if he can stack good plays and victories, then that price goes on up. All right, let's go back to the questions here. Jarrett C. says, Broderick Jones has been horrible in pass pro since being kicked out to right tackle. I don't understand why the Steelers trade up to draft him if we're still giving Dan Moore starting reps. It makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, Jones has struggled, especially, as Jared says, in pass protection. The run blocking's still been pretty good. You know, you just heard Kevin Dawson make those comments about, they moved me from right guard to left guard, and it wasn't, my natural spot was right guard. I'm better, because I'm right guard. There's probably a valid question there about, is it happening again with Broderick Jones?
Right. It's a fair question. Yeah, especially when in the pass protection department.
I think the answer to that, the best that I can give at least, I think it's a valid and fair critique. And, in the offseason, you probably want to shift that guy over. But
right.
They want their best run blockers on the field. That's Dan Moore and Broderick Jones. They're still a run-oriented, run-central and centric type team. And Dan Moore cannot play right tackle, so Jones has to really step up and do that. And a core four is a below-average run blocker. And again, Moore not being able to play right tackle, you can't flip them like that. So they just want the run blockers, and Moore is cemented at left tackle. That kind of leaves them with Jones at right tackle.
And he's had more tape on him as it goes. So that gives these other pass rushers and defensive coordinators a better idea of how to attack his weaknesses, especially on that side.
Exactly. Steelers fan 2077 says, any word on Keanu Neal? No update from Mike Tomlin today. I imagine if he had a chance to come back, he would have probably been mentioned the way Elijah Riley was last week, but we'll see by tomorrow if he gets activated before practice and that window opens, I should say. Then there's your answer. If not, then I assume he's not going to play this week or have a chance to even practice this week.
Yeah, I guess stay tuned until 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Yep. David Kapoor says, is Mason Rudolph the veteran leader this offense needs? He knows the Steelers way. Joy, thanks, and love to the most excellent Steelers Depot crew. Thank you, David, for the kind words.
Mike Tomlin had some, glowing comments about Mason's, not unexpected. I mean, what's he going to say? No, he's not a great leader, But I think the way he phrased it with look, Mason, it's not the first time he's been under center and been in this situation. I was just thinking earlier today, I'm going down a rabbit hole here. Look, squirrel. His first NFL snap was against the Seahawks, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's right. The game that Ben got hurt in week 2, right?
Yeah. Isn't it kind of weird how these things cycle?
That is funny.
cycle back around. Back to the question there. I mean, look, he's obviously been to the bottom floor of the ship at this point, right? And overall, and to go out in free agency and this year and not even really seemingly get a whiff and. I bet some questions did go through his head, questioning himself and all like that. I think as a whole through all of this, and obviously he's not a guy that the media now runs to or hadn't been a guy that the media runs to every week, up until now because he's the number 3 quarterback. I think he's handled himself well throughout all this.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. I think he's been able to lead by his actions, his preparation, staying involved, being a true professional throughout all this time and being essentially inactive from an on-field standpoint the last 2 seasons. He's also, if you think about it, Dave, one of the longest tenured current Steelers. The only guys that have been around longer than him are TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and Chris Boswell. And a core 4 came in the same class with him. I think that's that's it in terms of the order of the longest tenured Pittsburgh Steelers. So there's some value in that, in being in that building for longer than 50 of those guys. So that probably helps as well.
Let me see if I can find anybody. Let's see, you named TJ Watt,
Hayward,
Core, then Mason Rudolph. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy to think about that he's one of the longest tenured, maybe one of the longest tenured. Was that I think Adamski always tweets that every couple times a year, the longest tenured Pittsburgh sports players. He's probably up there, Rudolph is at this point. So kind of crazy to think about. All right, let's see. Don't Bug Me says, hey, Alex, what did Santa bring you for Christmas? Oh, what did I get? This it's in the shape of the Keystone State of PA, Steelers, little plaque thing I put on my wall, a new kitchen faucet because my current one is half broken, and Dave Bryan got me a really cool massage gun, which I've been using the heck out of. I really like it.
And you got popcorn.
And popcorn, yeah. From the Popcorn Girl, am I advertising that correctly?
Girl.
Yeah, very good stuff overall there. So no sponsorship, but check it out all the same. All right, what else do we have here? Jared says, happy holidays to all the Depot crew and loyal fans. Benton and Joey Porter have been contributing nicely on defense, logging quality snaps. Who's the defensive rookie of the year in your minds at this point? Who is going to win that Joe Green award for the top rookie of this class?
Yeah, I think right now it's got to be Joey Porter Jr., right?
I think so. But Benton we've sung his praises consistently.
Mm-hmm. Look, the whole rookie class as a whole, I mean, you can't be disappointed with it, It's unfortunate, obviously, what happened to Corey Trice. You didn't get to see him. And, Spencer Anderson's been, at least he's getting a helmet every week. He's obviously not on the field playing any snaps, so you can't evaluate that. But, you're talking about a late-round guy anyway. But when you talk about top to bottom, the first, 4 or 5 picks that actually play, you got to be happy with this class.
Yeah, and not only where they're at now, but I think where they'll hopefully be next year. Now, you can't assume second-year jumps. We didn't see that with, Pickett, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, has not made that jump. Pickens has been, hit and miss, and Leal has just been, people have already forgotten about DeMarvin Leal here, Dave. I mean, it's kind of one of the larger, one of the larger busts of the last couple of years in Pittsburgh, I get, probably.
Well, I tell you, it's unfortunate, and we tracked all that weekly going into this. Why, his sort of decline, especially as Cameron Hayward started to come back and see the field, and then Montravius Adams came back. He wouldn't have hardly seen the field any, talking about DeMarvin Leal.
Mm-hmm.
Had those guys not got injured there, but now that those guys are back, it became, well, who's going to get the helmet between him and Loudermilk? And then obviously Leal and him flipped and flopped the last couple of games there. And now look, we haven't seen the all 22 from the game against the Bengals. Still has not dropped yet, but there's enough TV tape out there. I thought Loudermilk represented himself well enough in that game just on the TV tape alone. It's hard to imagine him not getting a helmet against Seattle now, which means Leal's probably, barring somebody being on the injury report that we didn't expect, it's hard to envision Leal not being inactive again against Seattle at this point. And that's, when you're talking about a third-round pick who's seemingly fallen out of favor now.
Right. I don't know how he fits in the system, and he's kind of a base. We had
what was all our discussions during the offseason about what is he,
mm-hmm.
and how is he going to be used? And then we got into the combine, and Omar said, well, we're just going to continue to lean on that athleticism and that versatility, and and then fast forward to where we are now. To me, they still don't know how to use them. And,
I agree. Yeah, and he's an athlete, but he's not a pass rusher. He's not put that together, and that's really limited his role and usefulness. I'm getting over my skis here. We're running low on time. I want to get to some more questions, and I've not fully thought this out, but has Pittsburgh in some sense put too much stock on guys who were really good in college for one season? Leal had kind of 1 year. He regressed his senior year at A&M. Pickett had that one big year at Pitt. Maybe some other examples. I'd have to kind of go through the list, but I wonder if they're kind of banking on 1 year of production a little too often.
Yeah, I think we'd have to look at that positionally,
Sure.
and I mean, there's a lot of lenses I think to look at that in,
Because
because generally when we look at wide receivers, you and I headed a
sure.
draft. There was that whole 100 catch mark,
Hmm.
that they tend to like, and then a lot of the other things. Sometimes one of my biggest kind of criticisms now, at this point is do they rely sometimes too much on the measurable aspect of things?
Sure.
You know,
They overcorrected when they missed on Jarvis Jones because they realized the measurables or and the testing really was his true indicator. What I would say is I think in the long history of the last decade, 20 years, they've looked at guys with complete bodies of work in college and at certain positions more so than others. Receiver, running back, certainly. I wonder if in recent years though they've kind of maybe honed in too much on the 1 year production and trying to recreate that magic that maybe just was there for one season.
and not only that, the conference that they play in.
Sure, pedigree has not changed. I mean,
Right.
they draft Power 5 and basically only Power 5, at least in the top rounds. All right, a couple minutes left. Let's get through as many questions as we can. But one comment, Matt Boatwright, best Steelers podcast in the world. Merry Christmas. Listen to every episode. The longer, the better. So he loves the 2-hour episodes that we do, especially on Fridays. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Joe RF. Hey, Alex, looking forward a little bit. What's your thoughts on Herbig sliding into an inside linebacker role next season? He's too good and has such a high motor to keep on the bench moving forward. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot, and I think Herbig has proven myself wrong that he can play on the edge. We'll see. We'll see what happens to Marcus Golden. There may be a chance there for more reps if Golden does not return, and Herbig just becomes kind of the de facto number 3. He's played well at outside backer, though. He's really made, on a per snap basis, his production is kind of ridiculous. So we'll see. Maybe he does both, but he's playing well on the edge.
Look, I was right there with Alex. Both of us were wondering if this is a guy that was going to stay on the outside, and even through Herbig's own admission in the pre-draft process, he wondered if he'd have to move inside. And obviously, when you look at the Steelers and measurables, and look at Herbig's measurables alone compared to the percentiles and all like that, there wasn't a lot to look forward to thinking that he'd be able to buck that, but. He is showing up when he's on the field at outside linebacker. It's undeniable, and even sometimes against a run, which is one of the bigger concerns against there. And you would think he's going to get smarter and stronger in that aspect. So now at this point, after thinking that this guy, as a rookie, was going to shift inside almost immediately, I'm 180 the other way. I'll be surprised if they move him from the outside at this point.
I think you're right. I think they're going to try edge and use him as an edge guy as long as they can. Maybe change him up a little bit. He actually had one snap as an off-ball linebacker in this Bengals game. They ran a one-down lineman front for, I believe, the first time all season, just Montrevious Adams at nose tackle, and Herbig was an extra linebacker that came on playing off-ball. So a little small wrinkle, obviously, but I think he's going to be primarily an edge. The Rattlesnake Ranch mentioning Christian Kuntz, by the way. Did he come in 2017? He was kind of here, and he was in camp, and then he left, and outside linebacker to long snapper. So maybe Kuntz was there a year before, but maybe he was gone for a year. So maybe technically, from an unbroken standpoint, longest tenured without leaving or being released. But Kuntz has been around for a little bit as well. So good acknowledgement of that. Josh Miller, $2 super chat, says, "Who is your MVP this year? Happy holidays all." It's a good question. After last night's game, I think the scales have tipped towards Lamar. Still have Purdy in the running, and Christian McCaffrey is kind of your top guys. I would go conventional, though. I would say Lamar Jackson.
What's the question again?
Your MVP this year.
Boy, it's hard to deny what, especially after that game the other night. I mean, last night,
I assume it's league MVP. You didn't specify Steelers, or who's your Steelers MVP, do you think? TJ Watt?
Yeah, TJ Watt.
Yeah, fair. Quick discussion there. All right, let's get to maybe one or two more questions. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with Dave and I. We'll have an archive version of this on Steelers Depot in just a little bit. If I can find just one or two more. Joey Jr., Alex and Dave. So what needs to happen to get the Steelers in the playoffs as of now? There's a couple different paths. The cleanest and I think most realistic is Pittsburgh wins out and essentially root for the AFC South, who aren't the Titans, to lose. You want Jacksonville to lose, and you want the Colts and the Texans. They play each other week 18, so someone will win and someone will lose, barring a tie. But essentially, the Colts and Texans not getting the 10 wins, and Jacksonville losing at least one of their next 2 games, and Pittsburgh winning out, that gets Pittsburgh in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think we said the cleanest path is Jaguars, but I mean, obviously, as if you want to root against, just root against Jacksonville, the Colts, and the Texans this week.
Right. Yeah, there are other ways for this to happen if Buffalo were to lose out and that kind of stuff, and if there were ties, you throw all that kind of stuff in there as well. But realistically, this seems to be the most likely path to do it.
And it is that because you cannot finish if it gets in any tiebreaker situations with the Jaguars, the Texans, or the Colts. You lose the head-to-head with them, so you cannot finish with the same record with them if you hope to get a spot over one of those 3 teams.
Right, but we know the Colts and Texans cannot both finish with 10 wins, right? Because they're both
even
8
if
and
they
7.
tie, right? Even if they tie, they cannot get to. Both of those teams cannot get to 10 wins.
So if Pittsburgh can win out, they're going to jump at least one of those 2 teams,
right?
And then if they can jump Jacksonville as well, if they win, if they only finish the year with 9 and 8, then Pittsburgh is going to get in because you said somebody's going to have to win the South. That's going to take up that 4th spot or whatever and open up a wild card spot again.
Right. That's the important thing to recognize too. Somebody's got to win the South.
Yeah, and they're all trying to lose it, but someone's going to have to win it. All right, I think we are maybe just out of time here. One last question really quickly from Sydney. Any thoughts on Andy Weidel in the Washington Commanders GM position? That's floated by
I think it's just speculation right now.
Yeah,
I think it's idle speculation right now.
Although I imagine they're going to look for a new GM, and Weidel could get some looks. I don't know. We'll see how the season plays out for Pittsburgh, but you talk about some guys that may exit. It might be Weidel. I could see Grady Brown, the DB's coach, getting some DC looks around the league. It's going to be a lot of head coach and GM openings this year, Dave, so there's going to be a lot of guys getting interviewed. All right, Dave, we're going to wrap things up there. Appreciate all you guys stopping by. Really good turnout tonight. Happy to talk about a win for once and have some merriment and some cheer around this holiday season, so you guys can check out an archive version of this live stream over on Steelers Depot in just a little bit. Appreciate you guys being here. And Dave, Bryan, as always, thank you for being here as well.
All right. Thank you for putting it on. And thank you, everybody, for showing up and listening and asking some great questions. And hope everybody has a great rest of the holiday. Peace and love.
And we'll see you in the new year, I guess. And I think after the season ends, I think it'll be the calendar. So by the time we talk to you guys on a stream
Happy
again,
New Year.
It'll be a new year. And will Pittsburgh have more games to play, or will their season be done? We'll find out. But we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for being here, and appreciate you guys watching.